What's up, friends, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am giving my full review of the Polar Unite, the newest in their line of fitness watches. Now, full disclosure, Polar actually sent me this watch a couple of weeks ago before it came out, along with a bunch of other YouTubers who already gave their first impressions. But I wanted to wait to share my thoughts until I gave this device a fair shot. And after a little over 2 weeks of wearing it 24/7, I think I have enough data and experience to give you my informed opinion. Now, Polar probably won't send me another device ever again, but I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. I wouldn't buy it. I'll explain why in the next few minutes and share with you some other options out there within the same price range that I think are much better value. But first, if you're new here, welcome. My mission is to help you achieve success without sacrificing your health or happiness. I do product reviews weekly, so if you're into this, click that subscribe button and join the Type A tribe. So even though I wasn't personally a fan of this device, I am still going to give it my unbiased Type A review. So we're gonna go over the comfort and design, accuracy, and look at the pros and cons of this device. And of course, I've included timestamps in the description below if you wanna jump ahead to some other points. So let's start with comfort and design. The Polar Unite is actually really lightweight despite its very large watch face. It didn't feel overly bulky on my arm, and it actually didn't even bother me while sleeping like the Apple Watch sometimes does. And the screen is really, really bright. It's a high-res colored touch display, which actually makes it really easy to read your stats. Now, I will say for a budget-friendly device coming in at around $150, the Polar does a good job with tracking your fitness and sleep data. So I definitely will give them credit on that front. And I'll be addressing the accuracy of my stats in just a sec. But I will say Polar missed the mark on a couple of key design features. To start, and in my opinion, the most problematic is the touchscreen. There was a huge delay in terms of the touchscreen response time. The lag time kind of reminded me like I was using my Android phone back from 2007. But for goodness sakes, we're in 2020. The technology has come so far since then. And so I was really disappointed to see such a slow response time when it came to swipes. Now, in terms of phone notifications, well, these are only one way. So you can read a text come through, but then you can't respond to it. And in the show notes below, I'll include a step-by-step guide on how to enable your phone notifications if you have this device, because it wasn't all that intuitive. Now, to save on battery life, they included a rise to wake feature, which I normally wouldn't mind if it actually worked properly. You literally have to flick your wrist several times in order to activate the home screen. And honestly, after trying for multiple times, I just gave up and pressed this little silver button on the side instead. Now, a quick side note, you can disable this functionality, but only when you're working out. So basically you have to start your workout, swipe down from the top, enable backlight, and then you're good to go. But to me, this was a total time suck, and honestly, I would rather sacrifice battery life to have a better backlight feature. Polar's design also included this Apple Watch style wristband, which is great in theory, except this one was super hard to put on. The pins just didn't fit properly, and it took me multiple attempts to try to get this thing on my wrist. I mean, even after 2 weeks, I was still struggling with it, which is probably not a great sign. But the bands are interchangeable, so you can swap around different colors. And then finally, we come to battery life. So Polar claims that this device can get 4 days, but to be completely honest, I wasn't able to go more than 3 without having to charge. Now, I will say the watch does charge lightning fast, but it also comes with its own proprietary USB charger, which is just one other thing you have to keep track of. Now, before we switch over to accuracy, let's take 1 second and talk about GPS. So there's no built-in GPS feature. It's only a connected GPS, meaning you have to carry your phone around with you if you want to get precise distance measurements. Now, I can totally understand this in a device that's under $100, but this is Polar, one of the big players in the fitness tracking space. Even if this is their budget-friendly option and they're trying to save on battery life, not sure this was the best feature to skimp on. Now, in terms of accuracy, I trust Polar in terms of its heart rate data. They're really the gold standard for precision in this field, when it comes to things like heart rate monitors and chest straps. Now, I'm definitely not saying this is the Polar H10, and in fact, if you really want precise accuracy, definitely go with a chest strap. But considering how closely the sensors are to your wrist and the fact that they're using the same Polar Precision Prime technology that you'll find in some of their more advanced models, I think it's a safe bet to say that their HR data is pretty accurate. Now, for all of my workouts, I found that when synced to my phone, the Polar actually recorded just about the same distance for my runs and my hikes as my Apple Watch, which has its own built-in GPS. And even my daily step counts were pretty similar across the board, only being off about 50 to 100 steps per day. But surprisingly, my daily calories burned were totally off. On average, the Polar said I burned 400 more calories than my Apple Watch. So one of them is definitely way off. I'm not entirely sure which one that is. And then we come to sleep. So I tracked my Polar and Oura Ring stats over the last 2 weeks and found that across the board, my total sleep time and REM sleep stats were fairly similar. Unfortunately though, when it comes to deep sleep, my numbers were off by about an hour, sometimes even more, for more than half the nights. But I will say the Polar Unite did a much better job than my Garmin when it comes to consistency. And another interesting feature was the nightly recharge component, which you can unlock after 3 nights. So very much like the Oura Ring, the Polar Unite also tracks your heart rate, your HRV, and your respiratory rate. And then when you wake up, you get a score on how well you recovered, and even some suggestions on how hard to push yourself that day. Now, for someone obsessed with sleep data, I have to say I was a bit overwhelmed by the prolific amount of sleep data that you get from this device that you can access in their Polar Flow app. To start, there's a sleep section that analyzes your REM and your deep sleep, but then has all these other stats like continuity and regeneration, which I think just overcomplicates things for the end user. Not to mention, you then have to open up a separate tab on the app called Nightly Recharge to access your stats on HRV and heart rate data. And for me personally, this is one of those features I think that they could have just simplified and streamlined to make things easier on people. Now, as I mentioned before, this would not be my go-to fitness tracker, but I will share some other options within the same price range in just a sec. But first, let's take a look at both the pros and the cons of this device. It is very lightweight and pretty comfortable to wear. It really does look like a normal watch, and once you can get the damn thing on your wrist, it is definitely not going anywhere. Another thing I liked was the custom widgets. Much like the Apple Watch, you can actually customize your home screen to show either just the time, your activity level for the day, or even your sleep score. And a final thing to mention in terms of pros is their FitSpark feature. So this is something that they've actually included in some of their other watches like the Polar Ignite. It's actually a custom workout training guide that you can access straight from your watch. So each day you'll actually get a series of new workouts based on your previous day activity and your overall recovery. So if you're at all familiar with the Whoop's coaching feature, it acts in a very similar way with the same principle in mind: balance and recovery. Now, I personally have a couple of go-to apps that I use for my at-home fitness workouts that I really like because they actually show you the proper form with the exercise. But I could see this being a nice feature for people on the go or just looking for some level of accountability with their workout routines. And finally, we come to the cons. So as I mentioned before, no built-in GPS tracking. And I think that this would be a no-go for some of my running and especially swimming friends who simply don't bring their phones with them on their workouts. The second drawback is that slow to response touchscreen and the rise to wake feature. Now, maybe I am spoiled by how quickly the touchscreen works on my Apple Watch, but I can really see this feature being very frustrating for some people. There were a couple of times that I didn't even really want to record my workout because of the long lag. And finally, despite this being a fitness and lifestyle watch with a ton of data, I think that there were some features that were just a bit excessive. And this includes things like their fitness test and their serene mode. So the fitness test is a 5-minute exercise where you lie on the floor and the watch will actually measure your VO2 max. And this is basically how much oxygen your body can consume when you actually push it to the max. So this was a really cool feature, but I only felt the need to use it once. And another feature I only used once or twice was the serene mode, which coaches you on breathing exercises. Now, it's definitely aesthetic and I can see it working for some people, but for me, I kind of need a little bit of a reminder or a push to do a breathing exercise in the middle of working. And so that's why I prefer something like the relaxation reminder that came from the Garmin Vivo Smart 4. So overall, I had high hopes for this device. And I was so excited because this is literally the first and probably last fitness device that I got for free to test on this channel. But I just can't promote something that I wouldn't wear myself. And so I'm gonna say skip the Unite and go with one of these budget-friendly options. So a great alternative is the Fitbit Charge 4. Now, I was a Fitbit user for years, and I only recently swapped it out for my Apple Watch. Now, what I like about the Fitbit Charge is that it's the same price point, but you get a lot more what I'd consider useful features. And this includes the built-in GPS and a 7-day battery life. It's also swim-proof, so you can actually get up to 50 meters with it. Unfortunately, the Polar Unite can only get 30 meters. And the Fitbit Charge also has the tap and pay feature, which I personally love, especially when I'm on the go and I don't have my phone on me. Another option I'd look at is the Apple Watch Series 3, which has actually come down quite a bit in price, and it's still jam-packed with a ton of features that stretch beyond fitness. So for only $50 more, you can get access to things like texting, a whole slew of apps, and music control, which is something that I definitely use on my runs. So overall, that is my honest take on the Polar Unite. Again, I think Polar is a great fitness company, and this entry-level watch might work for some people who are especially already familiar with the Polar ecosystem, but it just wasn't the right fit for me. I have a couple more smartwatches I'm testing out, so stay tuned for those in future episodes, and thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate your support. If you learned something, if you like this video, please give it 2 big thumbs up, and as always, feel free to shoot me some product ideas in the comment section below. You can also reach out to me directly on my Instagram at KatieTypeA. I'm happy to answer any questions about any devices that I've used openly and honestly with you guys. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure to click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when I drop a new video on Thursdays. And until then, I'll catch you on the next one.